Come on, y'all. Parents, let's be real. It is not easy being a parent, no matter whether you've been a parent for 10 years, 15, 20 years, or you're a brand new parent. The struggle is real, especially with everything going on with the whole shelter in place and this global pandemic. Well, stay tuned because today I have a great friend that's going to share with us how the quality of your presence can actually manage those behaviors. Let's get it, Celia. Good morning. Welcome to another live stream episode of FTIO, where we are all about inspiring change from the inside out. And if this is your first time rocking with me today and you find any value in today's video, do me a favor, consider joining the tribe and clicking subscribe on the link below. Happy Friday, everyone. Yes, we made it to the end of the week. It is the 25th live stream. Yes, 25th live stream of this quarantine series, y'all. So this quarantine series that I've been doing Monday through Friday, every morning, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you've been with me for all 25 days or for a good amount of them, I appreciate you. And if this is your first time, welcome again to my channel. Again, this is a beautiful day. Number one, as you can see, my setup is a little bit different. I apologize yesterday for those of you who are with me and you were looking at that 180p looking screen. I mean, every single live stream I've done so far has been on the Wi-Fi, and yesterday wasn't anything different, but I was like, wow, I saw the quality of the stream. And so I moved everything downstairs and I told my wife I'm gonna be in the living room for a little while this morning. But she's good with it. So check it out, y'all. Today, again, is about the power of story time. Now, before we get into this, let me just preface this with, as you see, I'm rocking my You're Amazing tee or my You're Amazing hoodie. And so 6 years ago, when I was working at the hospital, in the App State Hospital, I found an organization, or the organization found me, however you want to put it, named Soul Shop. And it was about social emotional learning. And a friend of mine who was really, who knew about Challenge Day, sent me the link to this audition for this organization called Soul Shop. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was all about. And so when I went to go check it out, the friend who recommended me, Tracy Blake, shout out to Tracy Blake. She was a counselor at the time at Marysville. So shout out to Tracy if you're watching the stream. And so she was like, yeah, check it out. I think that you'd be a good fit. And I was like, oh, okay. And at the time, my only experience with youth was high school and up. So when I saw the audition opportunity, or the opportunity to audition and try out, it was like TK through 8th grade. And I was like, I don't know about that. I watched that movie Kindergarten Cop, y'all, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that I was fearful. I was fearful of the littles like that. And so, but I went, saw it, saw Joseph Savage, co-founder, facilitate a workshop, and that was it. Like, I was like, oh, I get it. And this channel is inspiring change. And Soul Shop has done that for me in so many ways, right? It's inspired me to change the way I look at myself, the way I, all the self-doubt, a lot of the self-esteem issues that I had, the way that, I looked at all the, the upbringings in my life and the trauma in my life, and learning how to unpack that, but in a healthy way, and using tools, and more importantly, building community. So shout out to, again, Vicky Abadesco, co-founder, and Joseph Savage for really just following their, passion and dream to try to help kids in that way. So if you don't know about Soul Shop, check them out, soulshop.org. It's definitely a great community. It's a great organization. And again, I've been involved with facilitating workshops for them for the last 6 years. And one thing that I truly love about this organization is the community, right? Because we're going out and we're like disrupting these, schools with our workshops, and we're sharing, we're talking about feelings and tools and emotions and things that aren't always talked about, not just in school, but not even at home, right? So learning how to manage that and learning how to take care of that in a healthy way so it doesn't come out in negative behaviors, as people will call it, right? When we think about behaviors, right, that's what that's all about. So with that, right, I was like, okay, I started seeing more and more how important it is to use the tools, how important it is to not just support the students, but to also support the teachers and the parents alike. The adults need support. Also, we need support too. And so during my time at Soul Shop, I noticed that we were doing parent nights, we were doing staffing services, and again, the community there at Soul Shop has been so great that I actually met my next guest, who's going to be on, my friend, a good friend of mine, who actually does a lot of our adult programming, but also has a program that she does for parenthood as well. So without further ado, y'all, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to throw on a beat like that. And then if you're watching the live stream and you have a question about parenting, drop it in the comments and we'll do our best to get to them and just say where you're watching from. Let's see. Chavez, we got Chavez in the building. Good morning. Good morning. Coming from Arizona. Auntie Lori. Good morning, Auntie. Fairfield, California in the building. All right. So again, quick, you got to drop that beat, got to build it up. So now if I can introduce a really, really good friend of mine, Dr. Chelsey Hague. Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to FTIO. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Thank you for committing early in the morning. I know we all have a lot going on, but I definitely appreciate your time
Yeah.
today. So Dr. Chelsey Hague, definitely, this is is this our first year together, or kind of, how long have we known each other officially?
So I've been at Soul Shop for the last 2-ish years, but I think the first year that I was there, you were just involved a little bit. So it's more,
Yeah.
I feel like it's really been this last year that we've gotten to know each other and
Yeah.
spent a bit of time together.
Because I think last year was when I still had a couple schools, but I wasn't as active in coming to like the monthly meetings and the staff meetings,
Yeah.
and I wasn't as involved as I was in previous years. So, but then this year,
Yeah.
a little bit more involved. So about 2 years. It's crazy. I know how time flies. Time flies.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful time. I loved what you said about Soul Shop. It's been really important for me to have that time with teachers and parents and feel so inspired by our school communities.
Absolutely. And this real quick. Oh, we have a good morning watching from LA. Good morning, Alani.
Oh,
Thank you for
nice.
thank you for being with us. Oh, bro, what's going on? Fairfield in the building. You might be at work in Pacifica right now, but thank you for tuning in, Brother Mello. So yeah, again, parents dealing, working with parents and sharing the tools that we've been, not even just Soul Shop tools, and we know there's so many more tools that we use. Before we even get into that, if you could just share a little bit about yourself with all of us.
Yeah. So I work with parents and teachers on behavior management, on social emotional learning, on how to build relationships and rely on the relationship as the sort of the driver for cooperative behavior. Um, I really believe that all children have the capacity to cooperate and that they want to cooperate. And that they want to do well and thrive. And so when I see a child or an adult who is struggling or having a tricky time or not doing what they're supposed to do, I always turn to stress. I come to this work and then then I want to think about how do we sort of reduce the stress so that this person can cooperate. I come to this work with a background in education. I have a PhD in education and have done a lot of work on social emotional learning, which is really like, how do we make friends? What do we do when we're feeling bad? What do we do when we see somebody else feeling bad? What do we do if we don't know what to do? It's the business of being human. Um, and I also come to this work as a mom. I've got 3 little ones. I've also raised my teenage niece who's 20 now. So I've got through the teen years once. I'll have to get through 3 more times. And all those things kind of come together to form my perspective.
Awesome. And so, yeah, can you just break down one more time about your family? Because you broke up just a little bit.
Yeah. So I've got three little ones. I have 4-year-old twins, and then
Wow.
I've got a 3-year-old. And I also have a niece who's 20 now, who I've been raising. So I've had her since she was about just before 16. So we've got the span of ages. And I think that being a mom really helped me to develop the practical tools that kind of match the theoretical orientation that I have. So I was a professor before, right? And what happened when I was a professor is that I had kids and then I had my teenager, and all of a sudden it was like, how am I supposed to manage this? It's really challenging. And it became really apparent that even though I had a PhD, I didn't know how to manage all of the everyday kind of stuff. And I actually turned to my own mom. In that context, I took her parenting class. And after that, I was like, whoa, I mean, it changed my life. It gave me the tools to really parent the way I wanted to parent. And what I found was this set of tools that really mapped onto the theories that I'd been working with. So I work with her on that now. I don't work as a professor right now. And it's really, really wonderful and inspiring to work with families on becoming the kind of family that they want to be.
Yeah. So where were you teaching? Where were you a professor at before Positive Parenthood?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was worked at Stanford and also at Mills College in Oakland. And before that at the University of British Columbia, which is in Canada, in Vancouver.
Wow.
So I was a professor of education.
So for those of you tuning in and just watching, so here we have Dr. Chelsey Hague, PhD in education, working at Stanford, Mills College in Oakland, British Columbia, right in Canada, and decided that, again, founder of positiveparenthood.org. Okay, I'm going to make sure I throw that contact information out to you there, and just switched it up because I love how, again, all the guests that I've been having on the shows, I always how did you get there? How did you end up making
Yeah.
that decision and that choice? And sometimes when we look at the way we plan, it doesn't always happen the way we plan because sometimes there's always even a
Totally.
bigger plan or even a better plan. And so when you had your first child and you're like, oh, reality sunk in with having to balance work life, family life. And I love how your mom also was doing, and prior to Positive Parenthood, what was your mom, did she have her own organization company? How did that work out?
Yeah, she is a speech pathologist and works with kids who have language challenges.
Mm.
And she founded a school for kids with special needs, and she had been teaching this class sort of just once a year, once every other year, no advertising, word of mouth, whoever comes. Um, and when I took the class, she had a 2-year wait list.
Wow.
And I was like, this is not, this is the thing we have to change. So I feel really grateful that we've been to come together this way. Of course, it's definitely not, it's not what I imagined. And
Yeah.
when I thought about my life, I always thought I was going to have a job like the Stanford job. And that's what I wanted. And things change. For me, the kids, I had cancer in my 20s, and that really shifted my
Mm.
perspective. So then I was like, I want to do something that really speaks to where my heart is,
Yeah.
which is what this is.
Yeah, and I love it because again, right, you had the career going, and again, it's nothing to take away from those who are in that career field, but you
Yeah,
started seeing perspective, your perspective changed, and you said you had
yeah,
cancer and you have kids now, and you're like, well, what matters to me right now the most, and where I want to be with, because we always say, right, time is the one thing we can't get back, and so being able to take that leap, right, and so yeah, so what was it that made you, or what was there a day or a moment when you were like positiveparenthood.org and you were like, okay, I'm going all in, I'm going full force with this, was there a day or a time frame, can you take us through that?
yeah. There totally was. Um, so I had a really long commute from where I was living to Stanford, and I did that commute a couple of times a week. I also worked from home sometimes, and my kids were quite little. And there was one so if you can imagine Oakland to Palo Alto, that's like many different time zone or traffic zones, right? And so I'd get caught in traffic a lot. And there was one evening where I was driving home and I was like in this long line of red tail lights, and it's like evening. Um, and I called, my mom was helping out with the kids, and I called to say goodnight to them. And I'm like sitting in so much traffic, and they're like having a bubble bath. Um, and I just, I was like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen in my life, but like if my cancer comes back and I don't survive, if I die, if I'm going to die of cancer, which, I don't have any cancer in my body, but that's always a possibility that it could come back. And I just realized like the first thing I would do if that were to happen would be to leave this job so that I can be home with my babies and give them a bath myself. And then it was like, if that's what I'm going to do, if I'm dying, why am I waiting till I'm dying to live the life that I want?
Mm.
So that, then there's like other moments, but I feel like that particular drive home was really, really important for me. I think, around the same time, I was upset at work about missing my kids and the amount that I was working and the amount that I was driving. And my boss, with all good intention, I think, said to me, I think we should get you some parenting books about how to tell your child that you're not going to see them for the next day, until the next day. And I was like, that's not how I want to parent. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that parenting book. I would like to read a different book, and be more present with my kids. And so, I think the culmination of those experiences just led to this decision, which was quite scary because I didn't know, I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen. But on the other side of that decision, I just feel really grateful that I get to do this work. Now I'm much happier and I feel like my skills are used in a different way and I get to be with my kids more, which, in quarantine has its challenges too.
I bet. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy because right, it's like on one end, it's like before all this happened, we didn't have enough time with our kids and we weren't spending enough time. And now I bet there's parents out there or people out there who feel like now there's just too much time where they don't get
Yeah.
to have that space. So because of everything going on, and it's crazy when you're
Totally.
sharing your story about that drive home and reminded me of when my wife and I were both working at an upstate hospital. We were on that grind. We were like back to back
Yeah.
doubles. Our daughter was,
Yeah.
staying with an aunt. And I just remember one time I was in charge. I was on the desk and she called and she was like, hey, good morning or good evening or whatever time it was. Yeah, it was the evening time. And I was like, I was just so focused on work. And I was like, why are you calling? What do you need? Go talk to your aunt. Just ask them. And then she was just like, I just want to hear your voice. And I was like, like here I am focused on the job and making this money to provide, right? To provide
Mhm.
for my family. And yet, what was I really providing? What was I really
Yeah.
providing? And again, I'm not knocking the providers. We have to provide. We got to survive. Like there's no way, we got to pay bills.
For sure.
But and so, which is why the topic in the description, right? The quality of your presence matters. And I was
Yeah.
very specific with this description for all parents out there who again, just because we're present doesn't always mean that we're present. And so the quality of your presence matters. And I think that that's one thing that I'm taking away from my time starting with Soul Shop and even prior to that, right? Like
Yeah.
seeing the signs. And I think Soul Shop definitely my
Totally.
my experience in working in the schools and hearing the children and their needs, it's not the newest, video game. It's not the newest shoe. I think there's a culture of just having the new things just to have it because everyone else is. But I think when it comes to parents, they just want their time. They just want their presence. So can you speak to that for us?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think that the presence is it's the most potent parenting tool. Being present with our kids is what's going to allow them most easily to behave. Um, it's, and at the same time, it's the simplest and the most challenging thing to achieve, right? So when I think about the quality of presence that we want, that is going to help our children cooperate and help them have less behaviors and less challenge, I'm thinking about like soft eyes, a really soft and kind voice, being on a child's level, being really with them, like not allowing for ourselves to be distracted by text messages or email or intrusive thoughts or the UPS guy dropping something off. It's really being present. And, Ryan, we talk at Soul Shop about being in their world, what it means to be in your child's world. And I think that's part of what presence is. One of the parenting tools I teach is praise, and the highest praise really is presence, right? It is to say to your child, here's my gift of time. You're the thing that is the most important to me, more important than my job, more important than the person calling me, more important than all of that stuff. And being able to value your child that way helps, being able to be seen and feel felt is going to help your child reduce their stress levels and also do the things that you ask them to do, like set the table, clean up the bedroom, etc. Because they want to be with you and they want that, that high quality. I always tell parents, and I really believe that the quality of the presence matters. So when we are with our children, how we are showing up with them is really important. So an example for me is that I don't really like make-believe play. Okay. It's not my favorite thing to do with my kids. I'd much rather go to the beach or like go exploring. But my kids love to play with little dolls and like tell long stories. And that imaginative play is really important kind of play, right? It's really good for their development. So when I do that with them, I try to tell myself, I'm just going to do this for a short little while, like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and then I'm going to do something else. And for these 2 minutes or these 5 minutes, I'm going to just be all in the imaginative play. And for me, having the boundary around the 2 minutes or the 5 minutes for myself is really, really helpful, because imaginative play, like I'm just, I'd rather do something else. But I know that's really important for them. And so it's like, okay, I can do this for 2 minutes, and me doing that for a little bit of time is going to matter more than me being halfway present, sitting on the floor, but also text messaging for a
Yeah,
longer period of time.
absolutely. And when we do parent nights, right, we always say that modeled behavior, number one, is key.
Yeah.
And so if they see that you're on your phone, you're not really paying attention, or you're trying to multitask when they just want you, that's going to,
Yeah.
lead to their multitasking and their being the same way later on. And
Totally.
and then that's the things that frustrate us as parents, because like we say, why aren't you paying attention? And it's like, well, I've been watching you this whole time. You never pay attention to me the way I want. So something to really think about, right?
Yeah.
Model behavior. And then also, you're speaking to just what I love is what you said. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes. If you can just like be totally present with your children in whatever it is they want to do. I love what you said, right? You don't like
Yeah.
to really do like the imagination, the playtime stuff. It's important for brain for the development, but that's honest. And yesterday, and a couple podcasts ago, I was like talking about priorities, and the number
Hmm.
one thing was how we prioritize our day. And rank number one was the things you don't want to do but you need to do. Right. And so
Totally.
when you
Yeah.
shared that, it was like, I don't really want to do this, but I know to increase the connection with my kids. I know to make a bigger impact
Mhm.
on my family. I know to give them the time so that they can be seen and heard.
Yeah.
I need to do it. Right. So like that should
Yeah.
be a number one, whatever it is. And I love how you said set the boundaries just for a couple minutes. And then I'm pretty sure like for folks who are just maybe they're a little uncomfortable in the beginning, I'm pretty sure as they go, they do it more and more, they'll
Totally.
see
Yeah.
that the time will go from 2 to 5 to 10, and then all of a sudden, when you see the joy in your children's face, and then again back to managing the behavior because you're present, because now they're
Totally.
with you. And so I think that's really really cool. And so the reason why, again, even when I first thought of us, getting together, was because I noticed one way that you stay present and stay connected with your children is through story time. So I really really was excited about that, because I was thinking about the psychology and even the connection that happens in story time. Like, they're engaged with you, you have to actually read and be engaged with the thing. So there's no way to like multitask reading a
Totally.
story. And so yeah, so if you could just take us like, well, what does story
Yeah.
time look for you and look like?
Yeah. So my kids are in preschool, right? And so when quarantine started, at first there was nothing, and I just wanted some way to kind of or start our day together as a family. And this was just like the first week before our preschool had any Zooms and before there was all of this virtual learning happening. Um, and so my husband is a music therapist, a music educator, and does a lot of music with the kids. And I was like, I want to be able to be doing this thing with other people that I care about and with other children. So let's host a story time. So we decided we were going to host this morning story time from 9 to 9:30 every morning. And basically, what it is that our three kids help us to design it. They pick all the themes. We read a book. My husband usually will write a song, or will, use other songs that we know that has to do with the book or the kind of theme that we're talking about. And then we just like play and read other songs. There's probably, there's a bunch of families that do it every morning with us. So that was 10 weeks ago that we started that. And I mean, I don't think we expected that it was going to go on for this long. Um, Probably like 2 weeks into the quarantine, our preschool started offering uh, virtual learning, and we did try that with our kids, and it didn't work. And so, for any parents that are struggling with their virtual learning, I just encourage you to really privilege your child's social emotional experience. Like, how are they feeling? How is this going? And if it's really hard, I think it's okay to not do it. That was the decision that we came to in our home. We decided to drop out of preschool story time and just do our own story time. So our family story time really really works because the parents participate. There's other kids on the screen who also participate with that with their parents, and doing it together as a family is a really wonderful way for us to um, kind of be together. I will say that the other thing I think really works about it for our children is that we learn something, or we read a story, or we sing a song, and then we try to do an embodied activity. So anytime you're on a screen with a child, you want to provide an opportunity for the learning to sort of get into the body, for them to move their bodies or draw a picture, go find something that has to do with a theme. So we really try to do that. And it's a cadence and a pattern, and we do it as a family every single morning. Um, and in these times, so our kids are like, they've lost such an important part of how they get organized in the world. They don't, they aren't going to school. They've lost that routine. And so doing the same thing every day at the same time with, like with a similar pattern is really, really organizing and helpful for them. It's a thing that we're definitely going to do, that everybody can expect. And that is, that's really nurturing. And it's a wonderful way for us to start our day together. And it's easy. It's just like a story and a couple of songs. So we do it together. We talk a lot of times about what story we're going to do. The kids have an opportunity to share. It gets woven through our day as like something we reference maybe at lunch. What story are we going to read tomorrow? Or what was your favorite song from Storytime? Or did you notice that this other child did X, Y, and Z? So it's
Yeah.
sweet. It's very, very organizing for them.
Yeah, no, I love that. And if you're watching the live stream right now and you're thinking, well, my kids aren't little, right? You have older kids and
Mhm.
adolescents. Something that came to mind for me when you were sharing with that was like, I love camping, and I love the campfire, because around the campfire is
Yeah.
when we told stories, is when we, talked about, we got to
Mhm.
learn about each other and connect. So if you have an older, child or even a teenager, right? Like thinking about those moments, sharing a story with them so they can get to know you a little bit better. And I love what you said about how you said people will, like you'll said, ask the kids to go get something to bring, you know, as like part of the theme, and just like giving them
Hmm.
more ways to like really make it tangible for them and to be more
Hmm.
active and involved than just sit and listen, because that's what they're doing all day, right? They're
Yeah.
sitting and they're listening. So and again, there's a lot of creative teachers out there doing really great things. And another point that I wanted to share was like there was a couple principals who were telling me when all this started going down, their priority wasn't like the academics for their children, right?
Yeah.
Their priority was making sure that they're going to come out of, their students were going to come out of the quarantine safe, healthy, that their mental, and their social and emotional like health is
Totally.
is strong, because the academics and all those things, like we can make that up, but there's so much going on right now, so much uncertainty, and we only can imagine what is going on through the minds and the hearts of our young people. So I love how you said
Totally.
sometimes you just got to shut it down. Sometimes, like,
Yeah.
come be creative. And so we have actually a question here from Alani, and she said, "What does being present while disciplining look
Mm,
like?"
it's a really good question.
Great question, Alani.
It's really good. Um, so before we get into that, I just also want to say that I completely agree that teenagers really need, big kids and teens really need a high quality of presence also. And storytelling, book reading, sharing stories about when you were a teenager is really, really important during that time. So let's talk about discipline. So it's interesting, right? Because actually, what I usually coach people to is is to really step away from discipline. So when you think about our kids and behavior, like if a child does something wrong, and Alani, I don't know how old your little ones are, um, but if a child does something wrong and then they get a consequence, oftentimes those consequences are not linked to what they've done. And something we know about punishment, if you will, is that doesn't actually yield higher, better behavior. It might, in the short term, deflect the behavior so the child seems like they're cooperating. But over time, what typically happens when we do a lot of disciplining or punishing or consequence giving is that the behavior tends to get worse. And so when you have a child who's doing the wrong thing, um, I want you to get really, really present. So let me give you an example of what that might look like. Say you have two kids who are fighting, like siblings. They're playing over something and then they maybe start hitting each other. High quality of presence would mean getting really, really close. So kneeling on the floor with them, being within hugging distance, so like arms distance, looking them in the eye, and then this is what I would do. I would take the child who just hit and I would grasp their hands in mine and I would say, "Oh, it looks like it's too tricky." And then I would give them the family rule, and the rule would be positively stated. So that's really important because oftentimes parents will say, give the rule in a negative way, like, hands are not for hitting, or we don't hit in our home, or don't talk to me like that, or that kind of thing. And they do that because they're trying to get rid of the challenging behavior, right? You want your child to do something that's positive. But for the child needs to know what to do. So I want to tell them instead, I might say to the child, hands on own body. Now, if it's, or, whatever it is, we play with toy and then it's sister's turn. So I'm giving her sort of the rule that I want her to do. Now, if she's said something that's kind of nasty or rude or inappropriate, um, I'm going to do this thing called recasting. And recasting it's such an offer of grace. It's so much grace for a child who has just been rude to you. It is to say to them, I understand that you probably don't mean to speak to me that way. And so I'm going to let you know what the right thing to say is. And with no tone in your voice, that's really important, right? You're going to give them the right thing to say. So if a child is demanding water, like you're at dinner and you have a child who says, give me water, or something like that, that's not, oh, maybe not the way that you want your child to ask for water at dinner, right? You want them to say, water, please. So then you're just going to say, water, please. And I'm going to let her repeat that back to me. Now, that works great for kids who are up to about 8 and sometimes older kids too. When you get into the teen years, recasting can become a little bit more challenging. It can also work in a situation where you tell a child to like clean up Legos or something like that, and they don't want to, or you ask a child to do something and they say they want to be by themselves, or they yell at you or something like that. You might then say, oh, mommy, I need another minute, or I'm not ready yet, with the idea that they're going to take that and say it back to you. So we're offering so much, I just think it's such an offer of grace. It's to say to the child, I gotcha. And most kids will take a recast. Now, in the hitting example, we talked about bending down and giving the positive rule. So I always have parents remove no, not, and don't from their language. And it's a pretty challenging task to try to get all 3 of those words out of your language. And you might try it today and just notice how often you tell a child not to do something. Because our brains respond more quickly to negative stimuli, right? So we notice more easily and faster stuff that's going wrong. That's just how we're hardwired. And so you have to really work in order to shift your language to noticing the positive and narrating things in the positive. And sometimes it feels kind of funny. Like if you have a young child, you might find yourself saying things like, plate stays on table, or hands on own body, or hands to self, or peas are for eating, or whatever it is. So it feels like, why am I saying this? But what we're trying to do is give the child the pro-social. So tell them really, really what to do. And to do it with no tone. So most kids, like when we start to get stressed out, we get tone in our voice when our kids like do something wrong, right? And then they're responding to the tone, and we want to be able to calm ourselves down, take a big enough breath, and like take a second enough for ourselves that we can respond from a place where we don't have any tone in our voice.
Yes,
Which is,
absolutely.
so challenging.
Yes, no, thank you. And again, right, there's a lot of depth there. I love it. And just to throw into context, Alani is actually doesn't have any children, but she's a teacher at an all boys
Ah,
high school, at an all boys
okay.
school. So, but definitely, I love what you said. Right, number one, just again being present, even in their moment of even in that moment of chaos. I remember when I was working at Napa State Hospital, and there would be like a psychotic break, and tables being flipped around, and I'd go in, right, and most people think, oh, here's a male staff, bigger guy, muscular, he's gonna do a takedown or be physical, but actually I'll just sit there. I would actually
Yeah.
like sit in the same room in the same space, keeping a good distance while they're having
Yeah.
their moment, and then when they look at me and they make eye contact, I'll just be like, okay, are you done? Can we talk? Right, and
Yeah.
like you said, like not having the tone, because again, especially with young people, right, the imagery is important, and we teach this all the time in parent
So
nights.
important.
Don't run. Guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna run. Don't yell. And
Yeah.
here we are yelling. So the imagery, right? So the idea of positive languaging, and truly being present in those moments of having to, you know, um, be positive in moments of when they're making choices that aren't working. So I think that's going to be really huge. So here, and
I love that, Ryan. I want to say, I love that you just said the thing about don't run and then they run.
yeah,
Big kids do that too, and there's so many reasons for that. One of them being that they process the last thing you say,
exactly.
which is then the word run, which
That's
is what you
right.
don't want them to do.
Right. I mean, how many times
Um,
do we hear that? You got attitude? No. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, we think about everything that we said. I love what you said. Don't use the words not. What were the other ones?
no, and don't.
Not, no, and don't. So, parents, that's your challenge for today and forever. As much as possible, don't use the words not, don't, and no. And just again, thinking of how you can make the positive language. And because then it's not that we're trying to avoid the situation, we're actually trying to help them through it so that they can see that
Yeah,
there is a better way. And I think that,
Totally.
again, it goes to our own, our own energy and our own what we put out.
Hmm.
I love it.
Hmm.
Let's keep our tone unneutral. I mean, not unneutral. Keep our tone neutral, and yeah, that's really great. So, thank you, Alani, for that question. And
Yeah.
I know we have a little bit more time. I know we're a little over, but hey, this is some good stuff. And for those of you again who are just joining us live, awesome. And if not, there is a replay available on Facebook and YouTube. So if you missed it, because again, 7 a.m. on a Friday, I know, I get it. Not everybody's up, but let's do this. And so I know that you have a couple more. Let's just do this. Can you share with another maybe frequently asked question
Hmm.
from parents, and then we're gonna go into the special five after that. So, what's one of the most common
Yeah.
questions you're getting right now?
I think parents are really just struggling to try to figure out how to get their child to wait and to play independently so that parents can get some work done. With so many people working from home, and even if you're not working from home, having kids home all the time, I think adds just so many stressors to parents' lives, regardless of the age of your kids. And so I want to say that something that I think is really, really important during this time so that kids can learn how to play by themselves, get through some of their Zooms by themselves, and wait, maybe if you're washing the dishes or on the phone with someone or doing some work for a minute. I think a tool that's really important, or sort of two tools, are praise and priming. So I would really encourage people to praise their kids as much as possible. And when we think about this, there's a specific kind of formula to do it. Um, we want praise to be really, really specific. So we're going to not say good job. We're going to say the thing that they're doing well. So like, wow, you tied your shoes, or I see you setting the table. Um, we want it to be really, really quick. So the research actually suggests that praise needs to be within 2 seconds of the act. So that means you got to be pretty closely tending to your child. Um, we want it to be so specific, really, really fast. We want to use praise for situations when kids are working on something. So where they're struggling a little bit and moving towards a goal, not something that's like super easy. And especially for big kids and teens, they're gonna, if you're praising something that they already know how to do, they're gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" And little ones will too, right? And you want to have that really warm voice, warm tone, so that it's, so that they really feel it. It needs to be super authentic. And then the research also suggests that it needs to be 100 or more times a day. So if you think about your family and you think about praising your child 100 times a day, that's like 10 times an hour during the waking hours. And I will suggest that you do it in sort of a sportscastery way. So you're just kind of narrating what they're doing, and you want to catch them doing something right. So if you are struggling with a particular routine, say toothbrushing or getting homework done, you want to catch them doing the right thing before it goes south. So say you're struggling with toothbrushing and they start walking towards the bathroom, then I want you to do that sportscaster thing and praise walking to the bathroom. Wow, I see you walking to the bathroom to brush your teeth. Great. Okay, so then we're just praising those little tiny pieces. Or say they're struggling with a math problem. Oh, I see you working really hard to solve that problem. Um, So you can, when you do it sort of a sportscastery way like that, it's a little bit easier to think about doing it that much. And then when things are really challenging, I want to say, I would just want to hold for the child that it's going to get easier. And I'm going to hold that for myself too,
Yeah.
because this is so hard, right? We're in a really challenging situation for parents. And so I want to hold for the whole family that this is going to get easier. And I'm going to tell the children that, like, today was really hard. It's going to be easier tomorrow. And I'm going to
Absolutely.
also tell it to myself,
Yes. And I think
you know?
something too that's important to remember as we're sharing. I love that, the praise and the priming, right? Because it does a couple things. It lets the young person, lets your children know like you see them first and foremost,
Yeah.
and you notice the little things. And those
Yeah.
little things add up. And I think what we have to be clear here is for those of you watching, right? Like praise is not the same thing as rewards, because I think what happens
Yes.
is that people get rewarded for the doing the thing. Like, oh, you did this, then you get that. You do this, then you get this. And they're
Yeah.
looking at their behavior now, like, well, if I do this, and I'm gonna get that. And again, I'm
Yeah.
not against a treat or a reward every now and then, but just be clear on, for those of you watching the live stream or watching the replay, like praise is not the same as rewards. So I love the idea of acknowledging your young person, because now it makes you as a parent have to actually be key to what it is, the little things you're doing around the house to be
Yeah.
helpful and to be supportive, or maybe even when they're in their toughest moments and not making the choice to take it to that next level, there can be some praise there. It's like, thank you
Yeah.
for not breaking the thing. Thank you for not
Hmm.
throwing your remote into the TV because you lost the video game. Like, and just noticing the little things. And I think the more that we can get keen to that, like you said, we're priming them now to say that, okay, when I do this, they're noticing our parents' behavior, right? They're noticing our behavior
Hmm.
when they're making healthier
Sure.
choices. And why is that? Because we've not only are we praising them, but we're using positive languaging so they can visualize
Yeah.
the behavior and visualize the outcome. And
Yeah.
it's not a manipulative kind of way. And I know for me, for myself, again, right, when I look at some of these tools, and I'm gonna shout out to all my folks out here who are watching, are like, man, bro, that's not how we grew up. It's tougher than that. And hey, trust me, I get it. Like the slipper, the chanclas, you know what I'm saying? I get it. 100%. And like we were sharing earlier, but that's only going to give you a short term, and they're going to be operating out of fear and not even operating out of truly understanding and growing. So for all of my viewers out there who are like, man, that's not how we get down. That's not how we talk. That's not how we roll. Like 100% understand completely. But what I will say is that we have to start breaking these cycles, right? Because if we look
Yeah.
at if we look at the way things are right now, it isn't always working. So we're here again. I love this conversation because we want to offer other ways and alternatives to how we've been doing things. And sometimes it's a reality check even for us. So for parents out there who maybe are taking this in and it's hard to even digest, or maybe you're just not there yet, totally okay. But I will encourage you to start thinking about implementing just a little bit of the things that we're sharing today, the story time, the priming and the praising. And then we actually have another tool that Chelsey is going to share with us today. And again, just looking at what you can implement,
Yeah.
what makes the most sense for you now, right? So we're sharing these tools
Yeah.
not to just like
It's a
vomit all these tools.
practice.
Yeah, it's a practice for
Hmm.
sure. So let's talk about the special five.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is a great segue because it really is like this is really a challenging way to be. And most of us were not parented this way. And the experience and the knowing about parenting that lives in our body is quite different than that. So the special five is a boundaried way you can start, right? Um, and I started doing special five with each of my kids when quarantine started because I had a real uptick in behavior. So I was seeing a lot of hitting, a lot of fighting between the siblings, a lot of defiance. And all it is now, for my kids, it's every hour. They are quite little. So if you have older kids, you might do it less. Like you could do every other hour or once in the morning, once in the afternoon. You figure out what works for your family. But every hour, I give them 5 minutes. Sometimes I've got three. Sometimes I do it individually, and sometimes I do it for the three of them. Kind of depends on my day. And I'm just giving really potent presence. So I'm getting really present. We do whatever they want. I have one child who really loves dinosaurs, and almost every special five, she wants me to draw a dinosaur and then we color it. And it sets them up, right? So I give them a special five, and then I say, oh, and I put a timer on it. Timers, I put timers on everything, are great for the parent and for the child to just know, like, okay, this is how long we're doing this for. And also removes the burden from the parent to say like, oh, now it's time for me to go back to work. It's just like, oh, timer went off. I got to work for now for an hour. So I put the timer on. We do whatever they want for 5 minutes, and then I work for 55 minutes. And then the timer goes off again, and then we do whatever they want for 5 minutes. And so it does a couple of things. I have multiples, right? So it reinforces the sibling group, like together, what do we want to do with mama for this period? It also sets them up for the next hour. So if we're coloring dinosaurs, I might make a couple of extra ones and like, let's see if you can color these, like, or maybe you're going to glue some tissue paper on these dinosaurs for the next hour. So it sets them up with something to do, and it lets them know like, I'm here and you're going to get another special 5 in a little bit. And it's like it's praise, and it's also Ryan, I love what you said about rewards, because it's not like you get candy if you can wait for this time for me to be with you, which is not always wrong. Also, like, it's okay to give extrinsic rewards sometimes. Most of us get paid for going to a job, which is an extrinsic reward, right? It's outside of us. So it's okay to do that once in a while, but most of the time, we want to use our presence as sort of the reward or the thing that kids get if they do the right thing. So, that it's to say to them like, here, I'm right here, and like, now you get to be with me for these 5 minutes. It's our special 5. What would you like to do? And then that's going to end, and you get into a pattern again, right? So when you do that, so many parents are saying to me like, I can't do this. I'm working, I am doing all this stuff, I've got multiple kids, they have all these Zoom meetings, and I just want to say, you don't have to do it all the time. You get to pick what time works for you, and it could be a special 2. It could be that your child is still working on this, so maybe you're going to do special 1, and then you work for 10 minutes, and then you give them another special 1, and then you work for 10. So you get to find the cadence that kind of works for your child, and it could change every day, but it's a great way to practice, like, I'm going to parent this way for 1 minute or 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is that works for your child. Because it's true, most of us didn't grow up being parented this way. We might not have models of how this can work. It might feel impossible that like I could stop giving my child consequences, or I could stop saying no, not, and don't, and they're going to behave. You might hear me say like, I want you to praise them more, and it might feel like there's nothing to praise, like you don't understand that everything is going wrong. And if that's the case for you, I just want to say, being super gentle with yourself, and also, like I say, praise the shards, like this tiny little piece that's going well. Just start with a little bit, and see what happens. Special 5, though, has been something that works super well for my family, and I'm working 80% time. So it can work, but you got to be consistent with that.
There you go. And that was just what I was going to share too. Like, it's about consistency. And I think one thing that
Yeah.
when I look at parenting, right, again, our daughter's
Mm-hmm.
22 now, and I wish I had a lot of these tools when she was
Yeah.
younger, so I could have given her the time. Again, she called just to say, I want to hear your voice. Like, you know, in that moment, I was still frustrated. In that moment, it didn't click to me, right? And
Yeah.
that was a special 10 seconds. That's all she wanted. She wanted a special one. So I think
Yeah.
parents out there, just some words of encouragement. Really, it's like being consistent, right? Things aren't going to just happen overnight. It's going to take time. And I remember
Yeah.
you on one of your live streams yesterday, you said, if you try something new, don't just try, don't give it at least 3 days. Try it for 3 days, not
Yeah.
just one, and thinking like, oh, it didn't work, and then try something new. Because as we all know, right, it's going to take work, and anything that is worth having is
Yeah.
worth working for. So if you lack a connection at home with your children for whatever reason, if there's a disconnect, and maybe you feel like you're just around each other too much, I love what you said today. Set those boundaries. Right, story time, y'all. Share stories. That is the best. To me,
Hmm.
that is one of the best practices and traditions. That, as I look back at my life, all of the OGs and the mentors in my life sharing their stories was so powerful for
Yeah,
me. And while we can, because like you said earlier, what if there's no tomorrow? What if I don't make it through cancer? What if I don't make it through this?
yeah.
I want my kids to hear my voice and my story from
Hmm.
my mouth. So whether you're reading a story that you enjoyed or maybe one that they want, or whether you're sharing a story that is relevant to, to them, so they can get to know you. And like we always would say at Soul Shop, you want to see a different side of your parents, and they got to see a different side of you. And parents, if you want
Yeah,
to see a different side of your children, they got to see a different side of you. Right. And
yeah.
setting those boundaries, being consistent, is and just making a deeper connection is ultimately like what we talked about. This whole videos about how we can help manage those behaviors with the
Totally.
quality of our presence. So
Yeah,
y'all, Chelsey, I just want to thank you again for being with us this morning. I'm putting up your information up here. Let me go ahead and put it as a big banner. So if you are interested or would like to connect with Chelsey, Dr. Hague, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just so like,
Chelsea's good.
yes, if you want to connect with Chelsey, here's her information: positiveparenthood.org. You can also call or text on the number in the banner. And again, this is not an easy journey. Parenting is a
Yeah,
lifelong journey, but we are here to help provide tools and to be with you on your journey. And we know that as parents and as adults, we also need our support. So I was thinking about what you were saying is, if you could share with your spouse, hey, what if you did special five with your spouse, right? I know like people talk about date nights and things like
it's
that, but
great.
that's
Hmm.
just not the reality for a lot of us, to have
Yeah,
that much time. So maybe with your spouse or
yeah.
your significant other, you can do a special five. I'm already the wheels are spinning
I
on
should
how
do
we can
that. Yeah,
how
me
we can
too.
actually apply this in more aspects than just our children, but
Yeah,
especially for our children. So I want to thank you again for being with us today. And again, y'all, if you are watching the replay, and again, and the reason we went a little bit longer was because Monday is Memorial Day, so I won't be back Monday morning. I'll be back Tuesday. So we wanted to give you a little extra today. Yep, wanted to give you a little extra. So I'll be back Tuesday morning. All right. So Tuesday morning, Chelsey, we want to thank you again. Please be sure to
thank
connect
you.
with Chelsey. You're so amazing, and for what you're doing and bringing that energy. Again, this is just the beginning. And with that being said, y'all, let's see here. So next week, oops, wrong banner. Next week, we'll be here Tuesday, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. There are going to be, again, some adjustments to the schedule. And with that, y'all, thank you for being with us today. Connect with your kids, be present, focus on the quality of your presence, because the quality of your presence matters. And we are out of here. Again, number one goal: inspire that change from the inside out. Peace, y'all. Have a blessed Memorial Day. Late.